Hi, I'm Mary Wing Soares, and this is Transparency in Government. Thank you for joining us today, and with me today is our town manager, Kevin Smith. Thank you.
Thanks for having me back, Mary.
You
keep inviting me back.
I know, well, because I think we get some good information out there. Before we get into the town side of things, I just wanted to say it must have been so pleasurable to be the voice of Lancer football this year, with as well as they've done.
It was great. I mean, we haven't had an undefeated season since the early 2000s.
Right.
Maybe 2001 was the last one. So it was a great season, but now the playoffs are here. It's the second season, and so we gotta finish it up now.
Right.
Hopefully 2 home playoff games. This Saturday's the big one against Pinkerton. We got the monkey off our back earlier in the season with them, but Pinkerton always plays us tough.
Sure.
And
so you never know. I mean, every game is individual.
It is, yeah. Especially in high school football.
Right.
So we'll see. I'm sure they'll be ready. They'll, we beat them at Pinkerton earlier in the season. This game will be at Lancer Park. It would be great to get a home victory over them.
It would be.
Yeah.
It would be amazing.
Yeah.
I can just imagine how little we'll get done on Monday or Tuesday. I mean,
Tuesday,
we won't have school on Monday.
That's right. Yeah.
When we do win.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm being
That's
very
right.
positive.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we've gone into reevaluation now of our town, or has it been completed?
The revaluation was completed earlier in the year. All of the values are out now, so people can see the new values of their homes.
So where are they able to see it? Because, I sold a home in Londonderry, and it still says that I own that home because the old website is what's linked to the assessors.
Right. So they can go on the assessing department on the town webpage. They can go on the assessing department, and within the assessing department, there's a link. It says 2019 revaluation. We're in the process right now of switching over systems. We were with Patriot Properties. We had been with them for years, and they handled all of the updates to our properties. We're now with a new company called Vision, and we're in that transition period, which is why it probably still showed your home as being owned by you.
Right.
And that transition will be done by the end of the year. And so because of that transition too, it took a little while longer than it would have to put out the new values on people's homes. But the tax bills have already gone in the mail as well, so people will be getting those. What people need to understand is this. The last revaluation was in 2014. The market was starting to rebound at that time, but since between the years of 14 and now 19, the market's just taken off, especially in Londonderry.
So do we get reevaluated every 5 years?
We're required by the state to do it every 5 years, although I will tell you that more and more larger municipalities and cities are beginning to do it much more regularly, much more frequent, for a very good reason, which I'll get into. Part of it is because what people are going to notice now is that there's a huge increase in some cases, especially for like colonials. I'll use mine as an example. In 2014, it was valued at $354. The assessed value is now $438. And that's because the homes, it goes by the market comparisons. The homes in my neighborhood are selling in the 400s, in some cases the high 400s. But all across Londonderry, there's been a major increase in the market values of homes. Now, what happens is every year, the Department of Revenue in the state will set what's called an equalization ratio for every town, which basically tells you how above or below market value you are. They like to see you either 10% below or 10% above. They'd love to see it 100 every year, but unless you're revaluing it every year, you're not going to be at 100. In our case, because our valuation was in 14, that equalization ratio every year got lower and lower. We were at 83% in going into 2019. We were at 83%, which means we were 17% below market. Now, Mary, I will tell you, which means you were getting assessed at 17% less than what the market was. Nobody volunteered to come into town hall and write a check
I know.
for that. Just want
Me
to make that
included,
clear.
because, you know,
okay?
I was assessed for a much less than what I sold my home for.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you have that 5-year gap. Now, where it really hurts us are on the commercial values, because what the very high valued commercial properties will do, and it's not just commercial, it's utilities as well. We're the only state in the country, by the way, that has this equalization ratio. But what the courts have ruled is that technically you should be setting the value at the percentage of the equalization ratio every year.
Well, it would make sense, because we pay, the real estate taxes in our state are what run our state. We don't have sales tax.
Correct. Well, they're really what run the local municipalities.
Right.
You know, the property taxes are what pays for all of your services in town. It's, you know, we get some revenue sharing from the state. We get rooms and meals. We get highway block grant. We get the car registration, a portion of the car registration. So there is revenue that comes in, but it's not like we're sharing in the state sales tax or income tax. So I was just talking to a college class about this earlier. The money has to come from somewhere, and in New Hampshire, it largely comes from property taxes. And so what the commercial properties will do is, let's say you were assessed at 20 million in year 1 when the equalization ratio was 100, right? In year 2, if your equalization ratio is 95, they'll put in an abatement, because they say you should be taxing me at the value of 95%, what the ratio is. And the courts have sided with them, Mary. So we lose every time.
Right.
So we've had some very large settlements in the last few years with commercial property in this town, who we were taxing the value at the same amount, right? But they were putting the abatements in for what the ratio was. Well, when your ratio is at 83% and your value is $20 million,
so
that's a large abatement.
Right.
And the only way to prevent that is to have regular valuations. Bedford's gone to it. I know Manchester does it. Portsmouth does it. So, and it's more communities than just that too. So we're looking to do the same, going to an every other year valuation, and that works to the benefit of the homeowners too.
Sure.
Because one, you don't get these massive spikes in valuation every 5 years, or in the other case, let's say the market tanks now. Let's say over the next 5 years the market goes way down, and we're at no longer 83%, we're at 114%, as we were in 2012.
Right.
Well, that's a problem too, because you don't want that happening either.
No.
So it's doing the regular updates seems to make the most sense. And so the actual tax rate itself went down by $2, a little over $2. I think we're at $19.31 right now. We were at $21.80. And depending on when your home was built, when it was last evaluated, if you had put an addition on it, depends on how high your assessment, how much your assessment went up. New construction, if you were built in the last couple of years, you're going to be close to.
That would make sense.
It makes sense. And so, you know, and some people will say, oh, well, you know, why did that $500,000 homes assessment, why did their taxes go down? Well, because they were close to 100% already.
Right.
So when the rate drops, they're going to see the benefit of that. But if you weren't close to 100%, if you were the ones that were in the 80s, like myself.
Well, you may not see an increase, though. You may see a level tax.
That's what I'm saying. It's if you look on, if you know, you go through the list, most people saw an increase of varying degrees, but there were some that saw a level, and there were some that went down. And again, it's all based on home type, condo.
No, I don't mean your assessment. Your assessment obviously went up. You've already told us.
No, you're talking about the tax.
I'm talking about the taxes themselves.
You're paying. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but I'm saying that even if my assessment went up, if the tax rate went down, it may.
It all depends on how much your assessment went up by.
Right. And so was there like a break even where you could say if your assessment went up by, you know, $50,000?
I don't know what that break even was. I don't know what the percentage was.
Yeah.
But sure, there's definitely a break even point that if it went up by a certain percentage or less, you either saw no tax increase or you saw a tax decrease.
So I have a gal that comes to me all the time and says, "What's going on with my taxes? What's going on with my taxes?" Because I know so much. And anyway, she has a smaller place though. She has something that's valued less than $100,000. So the chances that her taxes went up are not very high. Would you say?
Well, again, it depends on what her assessment went up as.
Right.
I don't, without knowing how much her assessment went up.
Yeah.
If your assessment went up 5%, you probably saw a tax decrease.
Okay.
If it went up, as in my case, 23%, you're seeing a tax increase in that circumstance. Okay. So, but here's the good news: values have gone way up in Londonderry. That's not a bad thing.
No,
people have more equity in their homes.
Right.
Some people aren't paying PMI anymore because of it. And if you're going to sell your home, you're selling it in a hot market right now.
Right.
The
and
thing
we don't see that changing for a little while anyway, with everything that's going on with Woodmont and the other builders that are coming into town.
Right. If people don't like the newer developments, if they don't like Woodmont, the one silver lining they can find in it is that it is positively affecting their home values. Interestingly, and Mary, I know you read some of the social media too. You'll read comments from people when these new developments and everything, and this is going to tank our values and our Londonderry's. And now that they're getting their tax bills and seeing their new assessments, why did my values go up? Well, because we're in a desirable community. People want to live here. There's a lot of activity going on, and it's great for home values. That's a good thing.
So I want to get back to, I want to talk about how many meetings that are held in this town are broadcast so that people who are not able to go to those meetings are able to see them.
Yep.
But there are smaller committees who generally don't have their meetings broadcast. They are noticed.
Yep.
The town says when these meetings are going to be held, and so certainly people could come.
Yep.
And if and minutes are taken, and if if somebody wanted a copy of the minutes, they just need to request it. But in some cases, the rooms that they hold their meetings in don't have the capability of it being filmed. The Access Center, except for the three main people who are here, is largely a volunteer operation. We have a volunteer that's doing our camera. Thank you so much. So my point is that when recently I was at an Old Home Day Committee meeting, and one of the questions was, why aren't these broadcast? And in fact, we were in a room that used to be able to be broadcast all the time, or maybe still can. We just couldn't figure out how you turn on the camera. Do you know if anything was changed in I think it's the very first room, which Sunnycrest room?
No, I think that room can still, do broadcasting. I think the Conservation Commission meets out of that room. Look, I think a lot of it's just dependent on what committee it's been. There are some, there's a lot of committees in town, as you say. The more traditional ones that have always been broadcast on television, or at least taped, have been obviously town council, school board, planning board, zoning board, conservation. Those are probably the main ones.
Is Heritage?
I don't know. I don't know if Heritage is broadcast or not. So if a room with broadcasting capabilities or taping capabilities is available, then certainly there's no reason why you couldn't broadcast all of these meetings. Sometimes there's multiple meetings going on, and so there are rooms. But as you mentioned, every meeting is noticed, months in advance, or at least weeks in advance. The public's welcome to all of them.
Right.
Traffic safety is another one. The Traffic Safety Committee meetings typically haven't been taped. But they are noticed when they meet every quarter. The door is always wide open. It's not like we're trying to keep people out. Certainly, we try to have as much transparency as possible and when holding these meetings.
So the challenge that I have as somebody who lives in Londonderry, and I get both the Derry News and the Londonderry Times, is that everybody gets the Londonderry Times. And when there's things that are inaccurate in here and I don't see the next week that they are corrected, it's very difficult you know, to be going out in the public and having conversations with people because they read something and that's not the reality. For example, it said in the article on October 24th that the Old Home Day Committee raised $98,000 last year. And, you know, I was in the meeting and Kathy clearly said we raised $9,800 last year. Our budget is generally under $20,000.
Right.
So for, you know, if I was reading this, I would look at it and I would say, and all they have left is $28,000. What did they do with that?
Right.
You know, other $70,000. Where did it go? Because they just threw on a parade.
It was a parade. It wasn't a $70,000 parade, but you know, right.
Right. It was an exciting parade. I love the fact that we had 4 bands there, four town bands. You know, but it was not as, you know. So this is what's very frustrating for me. Also, I want to clear something up about the police showing up that night. As we were trying to figure out how to turn on the camera, and somebody said, well, turn on the monitor. So I picked up what I thought was a remote and pushed the button. Well, it turned out it was the panic button. Okay. Generally, panic buttons are under tables so that, you know, the chair can hit it.
Well, you got to know where it is under the table, too.
You do.
You know?
You do.
At a moment's notice.
And so it wasn't until the police came that we realized somebody had been pushing the panic button, and we're all looking. I'm blaming somebody else, and in fact, it was me. I picked it up and thinking it was something else and pushed it. I didn't just push it once. I pushed it twice, thinking I was turning something on and off. You know. So anyway.
Well, and to that point, Mary, you know, that's why it's important for people when they read things either in the paper or on Facebook, is to verify the information to make sure it's accurate before they start jumping to conclusions. And you'd like to believe everything you read online or in the paper is accurate, but a lot of times it isn't. And so the best way to understand something is to call the staff at Town Hall, ask them, hey, I read this, or shoot us an email. Read this, is this actually accurate? And then we can
And
clarify.
I don't know, maybe nobody even picked up on the $98,000. You didn't hear from anybody, huh?
No.
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 You know, it just goes to show what a well-funded town we are, huh?
Yes. Yeah, if Old Home Day's raking in $98,000, it's doing a lot better than I think any of us think.
I do think that people don't understand the amount of work that goes into something like Old Home Day, or even somebody who's on, for example, the Heritage Commission or the Conservation Commission. Those volunteers, those are all volunteers. You know, none of us are getting paid for what we're doing,
and there's a lot that's run by volunteers in this town. That's what people have to understand, is that a lot of the events you see, especially Old Home Day, every single night, these are all volunteers that are putting their, you know, blood, sweat, and tears into trying to pull these things off. Santa Claus on the Common every year. It's the Rotary Club and those volunteers. Al Sypek, poor Al, out there by himself, putting all those trees up on the stands outside on the Common, and he's one guy doing it. You know, and so that's why we constantly need volunteers to step up. And I know it seems like everybody's schedules these days are getting busier and busier with stuff, and so it's harder to volunteer, but people need to know that many of the things they see that go around town that they like are volunteer driven positions. The town forest, Kent Allen and his wife Meredith, they've made that into what it is now. You know, it's like I said, it's almost like a park.
And they had such a passion for it. That was, you know, they did such work. And
it's amazing what they've done in it. And those are all volunteer hours. We didn't pay them anything.
Well, LAFA, you know, is also all volunteers. Creating all of those fields and, you know, maintaining them now. And, you know, it's amazing what this town has done with volunteers. And how much more it would cost if you didn't have those volunteers. You know, because you would need significant money, I think.
I agree.
You know, if we all sent it, I think that's maybe what we should do to the town council one day, is just every volunteer in this town assess their hours and then, you know, just send in a bill. I mean, not to get paid, but just so that they can appreciate what it would be.
Well, it's not only hours, but you know from having volunteered for things is you often pay for things out of your own pocket for materials and whatnot because it's, you know, it's what you do when you're volunteering and stuff. And so, yeah, there's a tremendous cost savings to the town when the volunteers step up. And we have businesses that donate things as well. Shady Hills always, I think, donated the trees for the common.
And they always do the decorations, you know what I mean?
At Old Home Day.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, that's...
No, we have wonderful businesses in this town.
We absolutely do.
Yeah,
you know?
we do.
Yeah.
We appreciate them.
Yeah, no question.
So there are people living in those apartments in Woodmont now.
There are, yep.
And I heard that the police had to go and rescue somebody from the elevator.
It's happened a few times.
Yeah.
And the reason it's happened is because things are so well made today. These elevators have so many sensors in them now that it's almost like they have too many sensors.
Right.
And so there's some that it was explained to me from the fire department that keeps tripping and thinking someone's in it and they shouldn't be in it or something like that. And so it's a matter of removing some sensors out of it, or else it's going to keep getting stuck.
So when they sign their lease, did it say you may get trapped in the elevator?
I don't think
worry.
so. I don't think it did say that.
No.
But you know, like you know, our fire department, they don't mind responding. It's what they do for their jobs, and so you know, and it's given them an opportunity to get over to Woodmont when they get a call and
see how they can navigate too. I would imagine that is really good, so that as future phases come forward, they're going to have that much more, you know, knowledge as to what they want to do with it.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I know this is really a school side, so I won't even bring it up.
Okay. All right. I'll let Scott handle whatever that was.
That's right. Well, I really appreciate you being here today. We are, believe it or not, almost out of time.
I know. Can I add another thing, Mary? I had the pleasure of attending the International Association of Police Chiefs meeting, which gathers about 50,000 law enforcement officials from around the country, most of them police chiefs, but there's some lower rank individuals there as well. And my takeaway from having attended a number of the classes there on different things like active shooting, or active shooters, I should say, victims assistance programs at the police department level, leadership training for the next level of leadership. The takeaway I got from going to these things is that our police department is really staying ahead of the curve in a lot of these areas. It was actually very eye-opening to me to see how far behind much larger agencies in big cities were from where we are in terms of our training, how we handle certain situations, just our community policing and what we do to really involve the community, you know, that bond of trust between the community and the police department. And so it was very heartening for me to see that amongst our...
I think one of the things that, you know, I see every single day, because we have a police officer in the school, is that relationship that, you know, that you all have built with the community starting there. But I also know you guys have the police have a great relationship with the seniors. And, you know, but also,
not just the seniors, the juniors, the sophomores, and the freshmen too, Mary.
Good one. Yep.
But then the other thing too that we were able to, so there's a lot of vendors at this convention as well, and the technology today that's available to law enforcement is out of this world. It's not cheap either, but just the kind of police engagement technology that's out there is pretty amazing. But one of the things we are going to be doing that the community on a number of occasions have asked us if there's anything we can do is we are going to be putting surveillance cameras up around the rec courts and back of the fire station There's always a number of calls up there.
Right.
It's in some sense secluded because it's behind everything, and so you have to, drive behind to get to it. And so hopefully now with the installation of the cameras up there, we'll see a decrease.
Are they already there, or are they going up?
They're not there yet,
No.
but they will be going up soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good. Do you have cameras behind on the back of the town hall?
There's cameras
To
on the
that parking
police
lot?
station. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the cameras from the police station will pick up anything that's going on behind town hall.
In those parking
Yeah.
lots? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I know somebody got keyed there once and there wasn't any record. So
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe that was in response to that.
And sometimes cameras don't get every angle either, unfortunately.
Right.
But they definitely act as a deterrent, and obviously in cases where there's an incident or a crime, again with the technology today and the ability to be able to zoom in very clearly, it's come light years.
Right.
And so it's very helpful in solving a lot of cases, a lot of crimes as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I think that, a lot of people use it. I know I've had a lot of positive messages, though, on Facebook, as you say, where a young person has been up there and then been some teenagers, and the teenagers have helped the young person learn how to skate or whatever. So, there's a lot of good things that happen.
No, there's a lot. That's it. I mean, most of the activity that takes place up there is very positive.
Right.
It's those, few incidents that occur every year.
Right. You just want to be able to monitor it, and I think that'll be a good idea. Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming again.
My pleasure.
I'll see you next month
as
well.
See you next month. We'll have more to talk about. We're in budget season now.
That's right.
So.
All the fun stuff. All the money.
That's right.
So thank you for joining me as well. This is Mary Wing Soares, and this has been Transparency in Government.